Thanks, man.
Okay, so we're starting now. Hi, I'm John Grosman, and welcome to Cinema Production. A little bit about myself. I've been a producer. I've been working in the film industry over 30 years. Produced literally over 1,000 commercials, 5 feature films, developed several more, and I have worked on over 150 music videos, which isn't on the screen, but that's just something to know. I've worked primarily in America, but I have shot in Canada, Argentina, the Czech Republic, Hungary, UK, Germany, Spain, a lot of places. So with that in mind, we're going to talk about the responsibility of a producer. This is my favorite quote in explaining it. A producer, it's like a plumber. If you do your job right, no one should notice. But when you mess up, everything's covered in shit. Now, this was from the movie Wag the Dog, where Dustin Hoffman was basically playing Robert Evans, the producer. But it's true. If you do your job right and you have everything locked down, it's going to seem really easy. Everyone's going to think they can do it, but it takes a lot of work. Go ahead. Hold on a second. Okay. So people want to know, what is a producer? Okay. The producer is responsible for finding and launching the project. He or she arranges the finance. You hire the writer or writers. You hire the director. You hire the actors. You're hiring the key members of the crew. And you're overseeing every element of prep, production, and post-production, all the way through to the release. Go ahead, one more. Okay, now where are we going to start? We're going to start with a script. The script is your guide. It's going to be the guide to all the decisions that you make as a producer. Okay, the script is going to tell you what you're going to do and what you have to get, locations, everything. It's all in the script. Now, the script you start with is rarely the script you see on screen, okay? The changes you can experience is a change to locations, a change to the actual story. You can change because of actors' availability. You may have to do reshoots. There's going to be financial constraints, and even world events. Now, I'm going to explain each of these in itself. In locations, certain locations are just going to be prohibitive. They're going to cost too much money, or they simply can't be done. So what do? You change the location in the script, okay? What happens with the premise or a story? The movie that I have listed here, Peacekeeper, with Dolph Lundgren, which is a film I worked on. When we were shooting Peacekeeper, before we started, we found out that Harrison Ford was doing a movie called Air Force One. They both had the exact same premise. Someone kidnaps the president and gets the nuclear codes. The difference was they had Harrison Ford and $38 million, and we had Dolph Lundgren and $10 million. So we really felt that our film wasn't going to do as well. And so we just changed the premise. We kept the story pretty much the same, but we changed the entire premise to adjust so that we had a different movie. Okay, the next film that you have over on this side is Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels was done by my best friend, and he explained to me about the reshoots that they had to do. The script was changed to the point where there was a female actor within the script, and she was entirely cut out. They shot her, but then they did a test screening. Nobody liked her. Nobody liked her in relation to the storyline. So they had to rewrite the script and reshoot those scenes. Financial constraints are basically, you can't afford to do what's in the script, so you're going to do something cheaper. And world events are when you can't travel somewhere because there's wars. You can't simply do a lot of things that are happening, like COVID. It can restrict you. So things affect your script, and you may have to change that. Now, here's the ending of Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels that everybody knows. I'm going to skip ahead. Now, this scene, which is the very ending, was basically taken from the original 1960s The Italian Job. What happened in the original script was the female character was written out. And when she was written out of the script, they couldn't use the ending that they already had. So they had to reshoot this. This scene was shot 1 month after principal photography had already finished. Hold on a second. Okay, so let's assume you have the script. Let's go make a film. Okay, now, go back one. Give me 1 second here. Let's talk about the reality of film financing. Making films cost money. If any of you have made a film, even if you've made a little short film, you understand this fact. Films cost money. You got to get money to make the film. Now, where do you get the money? In America, until you're a proven filmmaker, until you're a Spike Lee or a Martin Scorsese, you're not approaching financiers. So you have to do the friends and family plan. You're literally going to go and talk to your parents and your friends and anybody you know who has money, and you're going to convince them to try to help you make a film. Okay, that's just the reality. Now, how do you go to these people? You're going to create a pitch package. This is a movie that I have been working on for several years. We've had a lot of things that have held us up. We've had a lot of things that have changed. But in your pitch package, let's just scroll through this, Heather. You're going to have, you want to keep it simple. You want to keep it easy to read. You want to keep it captivating, okay? You're going to keep everything in there. You're going to include whatever you think helps. Don't feel restricted in your pitch package to the number of pages or what you put in there. If it helps, put it in, okay? And then back one, we missed one. Hold on a second, background. Okay, go ahead. So hold on once, there we go. Okay, you want to use images. Why are we using images? Because we're in a visual medium. Film is visual, so let's put visuals. If you just write a dissertation, if you just have a lot of printed words, people will get bored, they won't read it, and they won't invest in your film. So the reality of the fact is, you have a lot to say, but add visual images, it helps sell the film. Okay. And now, these are 2 films I produced. They had totally different financial structures. So I'm going to break it down for you. The one on the left is called The Paper Store. This was an American film, American financed. We had 3 major producers, myself, a lawyer, and a casting director. So those, I'm sorry, 4, and the director's wife. Now, those 4 producers went and got the financing. We literally had to go out and talk to people who work on Wall Street, people who have tax issues and they want to spend some money so they don't pay so much in taxes. All various places the money comes from. And we have to collect all that money, keep it in an escrow account until we're actually ready to make the film. One of the things you have to remember with American filmmaking is the more producers you have, the more money gets distributed after the film comes out. So you want to make sure that you have a lot of people there. Everybody has to get paid, okay? People aren't giving you money just to see it disappear. They're giving you money as an investment, hoping to get a return on that investment. Now, the one on the right, All the Little Things We Kill, while shot in America, was a European production. It came out of Denmark, okay? This was film financed through a group. Also, the Danish Film Board put money into it. In Europe, and I'm going to have Andy take over here, and he's going to explain a little more how European financing works. Andy, can you help me here?
Absolutely. Most of the time in Europe, producers look for money into organizations such as national film centers or Ministry of Culture. You got tons of organizations like that. They're actually funded by governments, state money. You also have organizations that kind of get money from national film centers at the center of Europe, such as Euroimage or Media Europa. For instance, you apply to Media Europa, they can give you some funds like from 30 to 60,000 euros, depending on the type of project you're working for, to help you launch the project, meaning they'll pay for script writing, they'll they'll pay for your expenses at the beginning, and then you have in terms of development and also production, you have different type of funds coming from European, let's say, organizations. They're also they use the source tax funds collected from different countries. So this is basically what you see mostly in Europe, but also private money sometimes works not the same way though as in America. The incentives also differ from one country to another. What I hear, Belgium, as we speak, has a tax shutting that is better than other places, up to 40%, what I hear. So there is a combination of, let's say, most of the time, money coming from state organization or a state-based, let's say, institution, the administration that helps, let's say, producer to build and shoot a film or a film project. And on the other hand, you have these kind of tax relief funds or tax relief type of program that help you also to complete your project and choose the right place where to shoot, but also where to, let's say, develop a project and also to distribute. There's tons of ways to do that. There is also televisions that kind of put money into. I had some occasions, for instance, I actually built a project lately, as you know, John, we worked together in that one. You helped me a lot because you were shot in New York, but some of the money came from actually they were European funds. Even though we had also help from United States of America. And in order for me to complete the budget, I went to some televisions and I gave them some of the rights, local rights, so they add more money to my budget, and then I could see them as a partner. So the formula, how to build let's say, a budget, put it all together and go on with that, on producing it. Definitely in Europe, you have some help from governments, but you also have to stay creative. I'll give a last example that 5 years ago, we actually finished a film in Kuwait, Middle East, and I realized that country is on a rudimentary level when it comes to production and all elements of filmmaking, really. They brought a team from India because they had nobody. Only the actors were from there. The film actually succumbed to a moment that 70%, 80% of production almost fell apart. So we had to fire a couple of people, and then I had to take over at the end as a producer. We finally finished the film, and I was very, let's say, I was not really happy with the product at all. We were kind of lucky because that was a product that was destined for Arab-speaking country and audience, and was a comedy and was mostly for teenagers, and it worked kind of well. The investment actually was paid off within a year, I think, and as we speak now, probably still on the catalog of Air Emirates, that film called Back to Q82. Again, it's a comedy. I'm not going to say much about the film, but just to say there's examples like that if in America, either you have the support of the students or help from financiers, still the laws and let's say the traditions that in America, you guys work or we work when I'm there with productions in America, there are some, let's say, legally, there are a lot of things that you can kind of put your project on the right track and go on and even succeed. While in Europe, they all that base of laws and support, you still have to create a kind of combination in between in order to finish the film and also try to sell it, which is another whole story. So right. That's what I can say. Now,
to interrupt, in America, they do have tax breaks. If you shoot in New York State, you have a 20% tax incentive. Most states have a tax incentive. Difference is you have to complete the filming, then apply for the tax incentive. So while All the Little Things was a European production, it got a 20% tax incentive from New York State, but you didn't see that money for over 18 months. So you have to have the money in advance to make the film. The tax incentive comes back to you, and you can simply say to your investors, we will get a return, but you can't say when that return is going to happen, and you can never guarantee them the exact amount. You can only estimate. So, you know, American filmmaking is different in the finance than it is from Europe. Let's go to the next one. Okay, past financing. We're now going to start to make a film. We're going to talk about selecting our director and our cast. Who do we select first? Do we select a director first? Do we select the cast first? Now, I'm assuming that you are not directing your own film. This is often not the case, especially when you're dealing with film festivals. A lot of people want to make their own film. They want to write, direct, and produce. That's great. I'm all in favor of that. But I'm talking basically as myself, I hire a director. Okay. Why do I hire the director first? Because I want to have their opinion in the casting. Now, let's get to the actual casting. Cast is important. The cast helps sell the movie. The bigger name actors who have a good Q rating, who have, followers on Instagram and Twitter, they help get the word out and they help sell the film. How do we get these people? Well, you can work with a casting director or you can try to do it all on your own. I'm going to talk about working with a casting director and what are the advantages of the casting director. Okay, the casting director knows the actors. They know the agents. They can help you. In the film Paper Store, we got well-known actors from television and from film working for a very low rate because we brought in a high-end casting director that had great relationships with their agents and with the actors themselves. What did we have to give up to this casting director to get her? Was she became a producer on the film without any financial investment. What she invested is what we in America call sweat equity. She did the work for no money, but she also got 1/3 of the production rights. Often you have to give up some of your production rights to get a good casting director. You have to determine what it's worth and how much it's worth and what getting that correct cast is worth to you. Now, the next thing is, now go back one. This is, you do an open casting call. You see this poster? I have never seen one of these in my entire life. I have been in the film industry for 30 years and I have never seen someone simply put up a movie poster saying, we're auditioning, apply here, okay? It just doesn't happen. If you see one of these, it's a scam, it's something, it's not real, or it's simply amateurs. Don't do it yourselves. Do not cast this way. If you want to cast and you need students because you're doing a film about school, you can go to the school and say to the people, I'm doing a casting, can I see your students? But you don't just put a poster up willy-nilly on the street and expect to get something. Okay, the next thing we're going to do, we've got our cast, or at least we're starting to get our cast. You're going to create what's called a lookbook, okay? Okay, what is a lookbook? A lookbook, unlike the treatment, unlike the pitch package. The pitch package is what you show to investors. This is what you use to guide yourself. It's usually created by the director, sometimes the director with the DP. This is to give everybody working on your film the feeling of how it's supposed to look, i.e. lookbook, okay? This is a film I'm doing next month, Izzy and Liang, and it's gonna break down. It's going to, if you see, we're gonna be using a lot of close-ups to get the feeling of emotion with these two. This is why we use close-up shots, just scroll right through, okay? This is gonna break down all the scenes and give us a feeling so when our production designers and our set people and every prop people and everybody else get together, they understand what we want to look like. Now, there's gonna be a flashback scene where Izzy and Liang are young. That's why we have these images, to give everyone an idea of what it's supposed to look like, okay? Then the return to reality, or how they are at this age. Go ahead, and that's it. And then, we're done with that. But that lookbook is a guide. It's a guide for you to maintain your vision. Now we're gonna hire our crew, okay? The two people you want first. You want your DP or your cinematographer, and you want your production designer. This cinematographer that we're gonna see a bit about, you can start playing it, his name Tim Morris-Jones. Tim happens to be my best friend. I've known this man for 40 years. My name is
Tim Morris-Jones. I'm a director of photography.
And he's going to explain a lot of shooting.
I started off at the age of 21, went onto a film set for the first time. I used to be an animator, and I went onto a film set and I absolutely loved it. Started off as a trainee, focus puller, camera operator, director of photography. Most important thing when you're a cinematographer is to remember that you're there as a tool for the director. That's all you are. You're trying to recognize the director's vision. So there's no point the director having one vision and me going off in another direction. That's not what I'm there for. I'm there to make the film the director wants. Sometimes the director doesn't know what film he wants visually, then it's up to me to choose a visual style which works with the script. There's no point me, if I've got a romantic comedy, having really fast camera moves, gritty lighting, telephoto lenses, because that's not what a romantic comedy is. And vice versa. If I'm doing a gangster movie, I don't want to light it with the camera hardly moving and beautiful colors and beautiful sunshine pouring in the windows. So what I have to do is to make sure that my photography is elevating the script and creating an atmosphere which enhances the story the director's trying to tell.
Okay. Now, if you were listening to that, you understand your cinematographer is your tool. He's there to help you as a director or as a producer create the vision that you want, okay? He is supposed to help enhance the storyline. He's not there to do his own thing and play with, you know, all the new lights he's got or whatever. He has to discuss with you why it's going to look the way it's going to look and why that works for that particular story. That's what you want from a cinematographer. You want cooperation. You want, you know, you want somebody who's going to help you. The next thing you're going to hire is a production designer. What is a production designer? They're the person responsible for the overall aesthetics of the film. They're going to be your set. They're going to do your props. They're going to oversee your locations. Now, in theater, you have a set designer. This is not a production designer. Production designer does the overall look of the film. Sets are only part of it. Now, this is a production designer. Now, you may wonder which one of these people is the production designer. It's the person in the hat not actually doing any work. They're directing the crew as they're setting this up. Now, what we're setting up here is a dock on a lake. We have a hammock and then we're gonna have just the dock itself. Now you're wondering what this look is. If you go to the next frame. Okay, this is what it was. We were shooting in Prague in the Czech Republic. Prague is a landlocked country. There are no beaches and oceans. So how did we create the feeling of being at the seaside? We raised the camera up so you didn't see the trees in the background, which you saw in the last frame. We changed the color of the water in post-production, and we brightened up the light. That gives you the feeling of being out at the ocean, as opposed to it's March in Prague and you're by the lake. Go back one frame. Hold on a second. If you look here, everybody's wearing winter coats. Everybody's cold. It's not a happy, fun time there. Go back. But since this is going to be shown, this is going to be shown in the summertime, and it's about the summertime, we had to create a summer feeling. This is what your production designer helps you do. This is what your DP helps you do. Okay, next. Okay, here's another situation. The production designer helps us out. We needed to, once again, shoot summertime. It was winter. How do we do that? If you look on the right, we build the garden inside a set, okay? On the left, we're building a bedroom. Why do we have a bedroom when we can just shoot on location? Because the cost of location versus the cost of building that actual bedroom was broken down, and we decided it's cheaper for us not to move the entire crew, go into a house and be restricted by 4 walls. In this case, we only built 2 walls, had a lot more room to shoot, and didn't have to physically move the crew from one location to another. Okay, now you've hired your crew. You're gonna start pre-production. This is pre-production on one of my jobs, okay? Everybody here is working on the shoot. I can tell you who each person is. There's the assistant director, there's the director, there's the art director, the production designer, one of the producers. But the real thing is, if you go on, a lot of people involved as we get moving. All right? No, we've gone too far. No? Go ahead. Okay, so I thought was the next one was it takes, okay. Give me 1 second here. I'm getting a little bit ahead. Go back one. Okay, yep. So, all right. So when you start your pre-production, you're going to be doing your budgeting. What we have here is the budget from a feature film. Now the numbers are covered, at least on my screen, I don't know, but you really are, this is just the summary page. You're going to break it down continuously. Now, these are two of the budgeting, what do we call these? Budgeting software I use. There's Showbiz budgeting, which I personally like, and Movie Magic budgeting, which a lot of other people like. Why are you using these versus doing it by yourself? Because these already have all the forms laid out. They have the jobs, they have the percentages, and they also do the math for you. It's a great time saver and really useful. Now, if you're doing a smaller shoot, okay, there's something called hot budgets. Hot budgets is used on commercials and music videos primarily. But if you're doing an independent film that only has $60,000 or so, or you're doing a short film where you're only shooting for a couple of days, you don't need to go to, you know, Movie Magic or Showbiz budgeting. Those are for big feature films. If you're doing something small, hot budgets is a much more practical and useful budgeting tool. Now, after you've created your budget, you're going to create your shooting schedule. Now, your shooting schedule is the job of the first assistant. It's not the job of the director. It's not the job of the producer. The producer can oversee what the first assistant director is doing and change things. But your first assistant director is going to meet with each of the department heads to determine the availability of equipment, of locations, and of sets. The other thing the first AD has to be aware of is the actor's availability. If you're bringing in an actor and they're only available for the week of the 1st to the 7th, or the week of the 14th to the 21st, you have to adjust accordingly. You can't just say, well, we're shooting in the location A and I need her here on that day. If they're not available, you have to change it. That's why you need a schedule. The schedule is also important for money-saving reasons, okay? As a producer, you're gonna be totally aware of money, because what's gonna happen is if you keep bouncing around between locations and going back and forth and going back to a location, that's not cost effective. If you're shooting at a location, you wanna stay at that location as long as you can, because that way you don't have to move your trucks, you don't have to move your equipment, you don't have to move your crew, okay? Keep all of these things in mind when you're shooting and creating a schedule. You want to keep it as simple and easy for yourself and your crew as possible. All right. Next, you're going to have your shooting boards or your storyboards, okay? A lot of times you have storyboards before you have shooting boards because they're just very rough, and then you finally bring them in, okay? Why do you want to have shooting boards? Because these are also a guide for your DP and your crew to know what you're shooting and when you're shooting it. And primarily, you're going to know what shots there are. You don't want to just show up on the day and go, okay, we're going to shoot the truck scene. And let's just shoot interiors of the truck and we'll have it driving along. Well, what are you doing in the truck? Are you putting the camera outside, shooting through the front window? Are you inside next to the driver? What? You need to know in advance what exactly you're shooting. So you have the correct lenses, you have the correct props, you have the correct equipment overall to make those shots happen. How do you determine this? Read the script. Talk to the director, and the director will tell the person drawing the boards what to do, and now you have a guide. Okay, go ahead. Okay, after you have your storyboard, after you have your script locked in, the director is going to give approval of everything that's going to be seen on the screen. The director is going to approve the sets. He's going to approve the props. He's the wardrobe, the hair, the makeup, anything on the screen, the director has to give approval. If you've ever seen the movie 9, the production designer goes to the director and goes, all you do is say yes and no. I show you something and go, do you want green or red? Yes or no? Do you want the set with columns? Do you want the set without columns? Yes or no? It's a little more complex than that, but that's really what you get a lot of. I don't have the photograph here to add, but I have shots of one of my directors literally going through all the wardrobe with the costumer. Then he walks into the next room, goes through all the set with the production designer, and then he walks into the next room and goes through all the props. The director has a lot of homework to do before we start shooting. And the producer has to be aware of all these things because that's going to affect the budget, the time of the shooting, excuse me, and the ability to get it done, all right? Next, we're going to talk about location scouting. If you're not going to build all your sets on a soundstage, you're going to shoot on location. You're going to hire a location scout. The scout works for the locations department. Within the location department, you're going to have, excuse me one second, you're going to have a location scout, usually a location manager, and a lot, you know, depending on the size of the film, you'll have the size of the location budget. Okay, your scout goes out and finds your locations. They take photographs. They should do a map. The map should actually say, this is north, this is south. The sun rises at this time in the morning and sets at that time at night. So you'll have daylight from these hours. Okay, after the location scout brings the pictures to the producer and the director, the locations are approved. That doesn't mean you're using them. That just means the photographs are approved. Now you're going to go scout with your department heads. You're going to scout with your cinematographer or your DP, your first assistant director, and your production designer. They're going to look at everything and say, yes, this works. The assistant director will say, yes, we can get our equipment into here. Yes, we can park our trucks. Yes, we can make it function. The DP will go in and say, yes, this can work. The lighting is correct. I can run cables here. I have enough electricity. I can make this work. The production designer will say, I can paint this or dress this or do whatever it is. Yes, it can work. Now, once that is done, you will do what's called the tech scout or the technical scout. When you go on the tech scout, all the people who are on the last scout, the DP, AD, and production designer will be there, but also you'll have your gaffer and your key grip. Why are we bringing along the gaffer and the key grip? Well, they're going to have to know how much cable they're going to order. They're going to have to know what dollies can fit in the doorways. They're going to have to know how much track they're going to lay down. This is why it's a technical scout. It's not about creativity. It's about all the technical issues that you're going to run into and have to be overcome. And that's equipment, and that's your gaffer and your key grip. Okay. Okay, this is something I cannot stress enough. The better prepared you are, the less problems should occur during the actual filming. There's always problems, but you want to be prepared, okay? So why is the producer there on set? Because some people say, why are you even here? Everything's going fine. We don't need to. Okay, two things. One, I'm keeping an eye on where the money's being spent. Because remember this, we're in the film business. We're not in the let's create art to put it in a gallery and hope somebody likes it someday. No, we are making money for our investors. We're making money so we can pay our rent and eat food. So that's one of the reasons we're there on set, to keep an eye on things. But more importantly, things can go wrong. Things do go wrong. Nothing ever runs smoothly. And I'm going to give you some examples here. Go ahead. Okay, George Lucas is filming Star Wars. He's got more money than anybody, okay? But he's filming in Libya, okay? And what happens? He puts the sand crawler, I'm sorry, he's filming in Tunisia. He puts a sand crawler near the Libyan border. The Libyans think it's an army vehicle and they're threatening military action against the Tunisians. Why? Because they don't know what it is. It's just some thing from Star Wars. Next one, okay? No, back one. No, oh, okay. No, sorry, we're getting a little ahead of ourselves. Okay, if any of you saw the movie Now You See Me, how do you say her name? Ilsa Fisher was supposed to be doing the magic trick where she's inside the tank. Well, her chain got stuck on her costume. She couldn't get out. She nearly drowned. You can actually have people die on film sets if things aren't done right. Okay, next one. Okay, the Titanic. Okay, again, James Cameron. Lots of money, huge set, huge crew. Somebody spiked the clam chowder that they were eating for their evening meal. The entire crew that ate the food was rushed to the hospital. Google this one. This is a famous story. Most people know about it in the film business, but it's one of these examples. No one planned for it. No one said crew is going to get sick and there's nothing we can do about it. Okay, go on. Now, I'm going to give you some examples of things that have actually happened to me. These are all things over my 30 years in business. Actors not showing up, okay? I've literally sat there on a set and wanted to know where my actors were. There was a situation where an actor, female actor, had a baby, was about a year old. She has been at home the whole time with the kid. This was her first time out. Since having the kid, she went and partied up, got so drunk, she overslept her call, was locked in a hotel room, wouldn't answer the phone, and we were just sitting on the set twiddling our thumbs. What did we do? Well, I went to the hotel room with her driver. I got the keys to the room, and we went in, we woke her up, we put her in the shower, and we got to the set, and we lost about 3 hours plus of filming. It is what happens, but you know what? You got to move forward, and you got to react. Okay. You're denied access to a location. I was filming in Miami, and we went to go to a location, and the man who was the manager of the location had his days mixed up. He was not there to unlock the gates for us. We're standing outside with trucks and crew and everything else. Took us 15 minutes. We finally found the man. He goes, "I'm not coming. You gave me the wrong date." I argued and said, "Not true. This is the date we're shooting." He goes, "I don't care. I'm not coming." Now, I've got an entire film crew of 40 people, plus the actors, plus some of the financial backers actually showed up that day, and we couldn't shoot in this location. What are you going to do? You can either burn all the money that you had for shooting that day and just go late, or you can react. What I did was I called my local location scout. He said there is a similar location at another place. Let me call them. They approved and said we can go there. We broke for lunch. I then had half the crew drive up to the new location, eat lunch there. The other half that ate lunch at the first location followed up. We loaded in. We started shooting. We lost an hour and a half to the day. Not a big problem. You know, we made it work. Okay. One time I'm shooting outside and in a public garden, and the gardeners are mowing the lawn. They're literally mowing the lawn, and we're recording sound, so you can't hear anybody. You're either going to have to record silently and do all ADR in post, or you do what I did. I walked over to the gardeners. I took a couple $100 out of my pocket. I gave each one of them $100 and said, "Come back in 3 hours." They took the money. We got our shots. Sorry, you know, it sounds underhanded and unscrupulous, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do, and you got to pay to keep working. Okay. The highway to a location was shut down due to a general strike. I was in Argentina, and the milk producers decided to go on strike. They shut down the highway, built a bonfire in the middle of the highway, and then poured milk all over, you know, the grounds around it so no one could get through. No trucks could get through, crews couldn't get through. We were on our way, not to a location, but to the actual film studios where we shot. We ended up having to drive on dirt roads and through someone's farm. They gave us permission to go through so that we could get to the location on time. Things happen. Be prepared, okay? Prop animals or animals are sick. I was shooting with some dogs. The dog showed up. It was sick. You couldn't film this dog. It wasn't happy. It wasn't going to do the tricks. It wasn't going to do anything. We called for a replacement. The replacement just didn't arrive. So what did we do? My assistant director sat down, changed the shooting schedule to put the dogs as the very last shot of the day. We kept working. The dogs eventually arrived. We got the shots done, and it worked. Okay. This was a big one. Hurricanes, snowstorms. I'm shooting in a studio, and a major hurricane is scheduled to happen. What do? My crew lives all over the New York area. They drive into work. We went and booked hotel rooms for the entire crew close to the location. Yes, I spent $5,000 in hotel rooms for the crew, but that was great because they could all get to work walking a few blocks, and we were able to continue shooting. Had I not booked those hotel rooms, the crew would not have been able to get to the shoot, okay? Sometimes you have to spend money to make money. Just be aware of the weather, be aware of your crew getting to the shoot, and make sure everybody can. Now some simple things, equipment issues. Your camera breaks down. It's preferable, if you can afford it, to have 2 camera bodies on your set. Okay, why? Because cameras break down. Okay, not so much now with digital as they were with film, but it still happens. It happens a lot with the red camera. They overheat. So have a spare body. If your camera overheats, simply replace it, let the initial one cool down. You can keep going. I had a bulb on a specialized lens blow out. You know, we had to replace it. You have to shut down or relight around it. Things happen. Now I have here 9/11, okay? I was actually shooting in New York on 9/11. We were on a location. We actually watched the second plane hit the towers. Why is 9/11 so prevalent in my mind? Because my next location was Battery Park City, which is next to the Twin Towers. Not only was that out, the entire city was shut down. The city was shut down for several days. However, I had somebody who needed to shoot because of scheduling. What did we do? We then changed our location, delayed for a couple days because no trucks were even allowed to move for the first couple days. We drove out to Queens, New York, to a separate location and began the shooting. This brings us up to the third point, which I never said. It rains on location. It started to rain. We had a time schedule, it started to rain. We didn't know what we could do. It's raining on us and we're shooting on location. What did we do? We called up one of the local studios that actually owns a visual location. It's an old warehouse that looks very interesting. They agreed to let us in. We moved the entire crew. We rewrote the script to being a location exterior to a location interior, and we completed our shoot. Were we half an hour overtime? Yes. Trust me, half an hour is not a big deal. You can be very happy if that's the worst thing that happens to you when it starts to rain in the middle of your shoot. Okay, you've got your shoot done. You've dealt with all the issues. You've dealt with the rain. You've dealt with the camera breakdowns. You've dealt with the actors not showing up. Now you're going to go into post-production. Post-production is in 2 ports. The first port is the actual, excuse me, work in post-production. That's your editing. That's your sound mix. That's your ADR. For those of you who don't know what ADR is when your recordings are really garbled and no good. You can't really use them in the shoot. You go and re-record them in a sound booth with the actor watching themselves on the screen with the time code, and they will say the lines over and over again in a clean mix, which then you will drop in, as opposed to using the garbled one from the street sound. The issue is you still need the background sounds. If someone's on the street, you can't have total silence when they say the lines and street noise when they're not. That is why your sound mixer is going to work on that. You then have your music. Music is very important because unless you're doing original music, you're buying the rights to songs. Not always cheap, not always easy. Don't think you're going to get that famous rock song to be your opening song. I've used the song My Love Is Lifting You Higher by Jackie Wilson in a commercial that ran 2 weeks. It cost me $125,000 for those rights. So be aware of this. Be aware of what music costs. If you're not going to use original, if you're going to use original, you're going to have to get a composer, okay? Graphics. I'm not sure if your film's going to have graphics. A lot of films do have graphics, and so it's important that you have a good company that works. And last is the credits. Why are the credits important? Because people want to see their names. You want to put them up there. You're going to need someone who can actually do a good layout and give you opening credits and closing credits. That's all part of post-production. Don't skimp, don't forget. These are all part of making a film. Now, the second part of post-production is distribution. That's a whole nother story. Getting a sales company, getting someone to do distribution for your film. I'm not really going to address that right now. That's an entirely different seminar. So let's move on, all right? Now, this is a documentary I produced, okay? It was called Soap Life. We had to re-edit this, okay? We did the original edit, and I saw the film, and it wasn't any good. I know the footage was good. I was there when the footage was shot. So why was it no good? Because the editor and the director got together and they decided they wanted to do an intellectual documentary about the rise and fall of the American soap opera. I, on the other hand, wanted to make a money-making documentary that I could sell. So I wanted to put in more people that were recognized by the audience and had actual effects. Less experts, more actors. So play the yeah, so I'm gonna play you the trailer for this.
When I was outside on Fifth Avenue, this woman in a beautiful Chanel suit came up and she said, "Aren't you Lisa?" And I said, "Who's this?" That's the part I play. And I opened my pocketbook to get out my pen. She said, "Well, I hate you, bitch." And she punched me right then and there. That's when I knew I kind of hit the mark.
As Agnes used to say, she wanted people to throw their sandwiches TV set at the end of the show because they'd have to watch the next day.
There's a familiarity that exists. You know, we're in our living room. Soap fans are, but sets our genre apart. They spend 5 days a week with us. We've been with them through changes in their life. There's a kinship here that exists. And we feel it on both sides.
Okay, so go back one. So why did I change the edit? If you saw that particular edit, those were well-known soap actors, well-known people that the viewing audience would recognize. Then I showed one of the conferences where they had the people. Why? The people who buy this film want to see themselves. They want to see the actors that they know, okay? That was the re-edit. That's what made the film go from a dog to a success. Now, what type of film producers are there? There's multiple types. When someone says I'm a producer, oh my God, that could be anything. If someone says I'm a film producer, it narrows it down, but there's still different types. So go ahead, next. Okay, you went double. Okay, there's the executive producer. This is the top of the food chain. This is the people who own the companies. These are the people who get the money. Why is the executive producer, you know, there? They are the people who are going to make the film actually happen financially, okay? They provide the film's funding. Now you might say, I watched the credits. There was about 6 or 7 executive producers on this film. Yes, because they probably had 6 or 7 people who contributed to making the film, whether it's a various studio, the studio that's actually shooting the film, the company that supplied, you know, the finance. There's a lot of people involved in making it happen, okay? Next thing is, you'll see actors listed as executive producers. Why is the actor? Did they pay for it? No, they didn't pay for it. What it was is that particular actor agreed to do the film, but wants money on the back end for doing it. Their name is selling the film. They are listed as an executive producer, so they will get the same financial return as an executive producer. The other reason why actors are listed as producers or as executive producers, it's called the Eastwood Law. Clint Eastwood, in the filming of Outlaw Josie Wales, had the director fired, okay? The Directors Guild of America then changed something called the Eastwood Law, or put into effect the Eastwood Law, which is an actor cannot have a director fired. The director can only be fired by the executive producer or the producer. How do the famous actors get around this? They had themselves declared producers. And then if they don't like the director and they're having fights, they'll have that director removed. Next. Okay, then there's the producer. This is really what I do. This is what most people consider a producer. You find the project. You arrange the financing with the executive producers. You hire the writer or writers. You hire the director. You hire the key members. You do everything we just discussed for the last, I don't know how long we've been discussing this, half hour or so. Next one. Last is the toughest job. This is what I used to do. This is the line producer. The line producer is the nuts and bolts producer on the film. He's the one who actually does the hiring of the crew, as in he makes the phone calls and hires each and every member, gets them, you know, agreeing to rates. He is allocating the money. The producer gives the line producer the money, and then he's going to be spending it. Now, you may oversee his spending, but he's the one doing the actual filming. He's making sure the film's done safely. He is making sure that all guidelines are adhered to and that nothing wrong is going to happen on the set. He's making sure that the production stays on time and on budget, and he's working with the heads of each department. The line producer is the one who talks to the cinematographer when the cinematographer says, I need this light, I need that camera lens. He'll may say to him, okay, you can have that lens, but now you're going to have to give up something later on because your budget is at the maximum. The production designer may say, I need to build out this room on all 4 walls. And the line producer will come in and say, but we're only seeing in this direction. Why do I need to do the 3rd and 4th wall? He's got to be the voice of reason to keep things under control. Now, he will report to the producer, and if there's a real problem, the producer will step in and fix this. But he is on the front line of production. He's there every day doing the nuts and bolts work. Okay, now there's also associate producers. This is a term that can vary. Usually they're associated with the film in one way or another, really can depend. So you'll see the title associate producer. It can mean a lot of different things. I'm really not going to get too far into it because I really, I'd have to give about 1,000 examples of how they could vary. Okay, the last one is when you are shooting overseas and you are not sending your producer over there. You have a destination producer. Okay, I shoot in Czech Republic, I fly to Czech Republic and I do it. But maybe I'm shooting in Czech Republic and I'm also shooting in Spain with my second unit. I have a destination producer. He is my producer in Spain doing those other shots. He reports back to me, but he is in charge of that particular shoot. And he is my producer at that destination. The term destination producer isn't often seen, but it actually exists and is used a lot. Okay, go on. Now, one more. We're up to Q&A, okay? I've spoken a lot. I can speak forever about production, but really, what I want to do is I want to know what your questions are. So I'm going to go into the chat room. I'm going to look at the questions, and then I'm going to hopefully answer them. All right. Yeah. Okay. That's it. Okay, we're going to start with the first question. How do I think the film industry is changing? Oh boy. When do you want to say from when to when? In my time, okay, I have watched film go from film to digital. That's the first change. The second change is in distribution. We have streaming. Streaming has totally changed the marketplace because you have a lot more venues where to see films. Okay, films are shot with Netflix, they're shot with Amazon, they're shot by Apple, they're shot by Disney, they're shot by all these people. In the old days, films were shot, you would go to a festival, hopefully someone would, purchase it, you'd move on, it would go to a movie theater, maybe it would go to HBO, but you did not have as many venues to do it. Now, people say, oh, there's so many places to see your film. Yes, but that's a double-edged sword because the negative is these places know this fact. They know there's so many. I was doing a movie for a streaming service. They wanted me to shoot the entire movie. Then they were going to look at it. Then they were going to determine if they were going to buy it. People don't always invest in advance. In the old days, a studio, you bring them something, say, okay, we're going to give you money to make this film. Well, you still have that on a major scale, but on the smaller scale, you don't. So the real changes, what are the real changes in film? One, it's the equipment. It's the type of equipment, the easy access to editing. You can edit on your laptop now. And the other thing is the streaming services and the distribution. That is totally different. So yes, you can make films much easier, and there's a lot of places to show them, but there's a lot more people doing it. So be aware, it's not simpler, it's just changed. Okay, next question.
If I can add something to
that. Go ahead, Andy.
Subjects are also changing a lot because now you have more opportunities, with type of technologies that we have and distribution, as you mentioned. So people coming up with stories that we probably haven't seen a lot before and languages that we never heard before. That's all I have to say for now.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Listen, my film, Izzy and Liang, subject matters are changing. This is a film about a lesbian couple having a date. And it doesn't really go into the whole thing about their sexuality or anything. They just happen to be lesbians on a date, okay? Why? Because there's now a market where that can be sold. In the old days, everyone would have to say, ooh, what does the general public think? You no longer have to think in terms of general public. You can think in terms of niche markets. If you can create something for a niche market that has enough people buying that particular film, you can make that particular film, okay? That's another subject. You can work the niche markets more. Okay, let's see, any other questions? Okay. Oh, what's my favorite situation you've been in that I've handled? I gotta tell you, when the guy wouldn't open the gate for the location, that was the craziest one. I don't know if that was my favorite, but that was the scariest because we were on a company move. A company move is when we shot one place in the morning, moved to the afternoon, and then we're expecting to shoot the entire afternoon at that new location, and we couldn't get in. I literally had a lighting truck, the camera truck, the prop truck, the wardrobe vehicles. I had 4 Winnebagos for the actors. I mean, we had a whole caravan of trucks and equipment, and I was just sitting there, you know, shaking my head, not knowing what the heck to do. That was scary. One of the other things that I really enjoy, I love shooting overseas in locations that, you know, I, you know, am the foreigner, but I can still make it work. When I'm shooting in Mexico and, you know, there's a language issue and there's a, you know, financial issue, I like overcoming the problems because I know eventually I'll overcome them. One of the things that you have to remember is you can make it work. It may cost you time, it may cost you money. You may have to move your entire shoot somewhere else, but you can make it work. Just don't freak out. Don't, you know, panic, don't cry. Just take a breath and figure what you have to do and make it work. But I think the term favorite's kind of a double-edged sword there. Because you know what my favorite situation is when everything goes smoothly, I show up, there's not a problem whatsoever. I go home, I have a great meal, I go to sleep, and I go to the shooting the next day. That's my favorite. Okay, any other questions here? Let's see. What advice would I give someone who wants to enter the industry but feels hesitant? Well, that's going to be an issue because if you're hesitant, you're in a bit of problem. This is a self-determined industry, okay? It's not like you're going to go to work in an office and someone's going to say, okay, here's your desk, here's your job, here's your salary. We're all freelancers, okay? If you're going to be a freelancer, you've got to get yourself your job. You have to make your own connections. You have to be self-reliant and self-motivated. Now, that said, I have a cousin who works in the film business. She does not want to be a freelancer. So what did she do? She got a job at one of the major agencies. She worked representing actors and directors and worked there for about a year or so and then met a producer. The producer then said, why don't you come and work in my office? We're going to make television, you know, shows. So she kept working in an office and it worked out for her, but she likes the steady paycheck. She likes to know where she's going to have a job in the morning and move from there. So I don't know exactly what in the industry that you're wanting to do, but if you're hesitant, that I can't help you with, but I will say you've got to be self-determined and self-reliant. No one's going to give you anything. You're going to have to do it all, not on your own, but you're going to have to make it happen. This is a business of connections. If you want to do everything yourself, be a photographer. Then you can take a camera and go out and shoot what you want and have fun. But if you're going to be in this industry, you're going to work with other people. Make as many connections as humanly possible. Okay, my advice to you is make connections, meet people in the business, go and work for them. When I started in the business, I would work for free. Okay, I was a camera second assistant. So what did I do? I'd work for free if the person let me be the first assistant. When I was a camera's first assistant, I'd say, I will work for free if you let me be the camera operator or the DP. Okay, I put in my time and I put in the days and I did free things to advance myself in the industry. Okay, you're going to have to be self-reliant. That's the real advice I'm going to give you. Self-reliance and self-determination.
If I can add something to that.
Go ahead, Andy. Because Andy was smiling and laughing.
Yeah, because it's funny. I mean, I remember a lot of cases like that where people have to be devoted, and let's say producers work with people that they can always rely on. One quality is always like people that can count on you, or whatever you're doing, they can count on you, and they can help you move up or give you more jobs. That's what I've seen all the time. Second thing is people that are successful in something else and they want to hop in a film business and work in it, they probably should use that quality and transport it into, or transpose it or adapt it into whatever they're going to do in film. They shouldn't do, let's say, camera where they're good at, let's say, managing, or the other way around. They could maybe be one day, but they need training for that, and they have to prove themselves. A step in the door, I mean, in the industry probably is start with something that you know very well, that you can really be good at that, and then give yourself into. Whatever they pay, money is another issue, but you help yourself by getting into, showing that you're good at what you do, and then they're going to rely on you and they give you more jobs, and you make connections, networking, and you move on. That's what I say.
Right. Yeah, I'm going to follow up on that as well. I worked in photography before I moved into film. That is why I worked as a camera assistant when I came to film. Now, in photography, you do your own production. So what people realized was I was very organized, I was very efficient, and I really made things work very well. So I ended up moving into production. But because I was a photographer and a photo assistant, I immediately gravitated to the camera department. As Andy says, you do what you know. You do work in things that you know well. If you want to totally change careers, that's fine, but at least change careers into something that you know, and also something that you really like, because you're going to do a lot of time working for less money than you should be getting, and putting in hours, long hours. So make sure that you're something you really like. Okay. Again, I keep reading that you feel hesitant. I understand. Look, everybody's hesitant when it's something new, but you're going to have to get over that, be self-reliant and self-determined. Look, what's the worst that can happen? You fail, so do something else. You're not going to die. You're just going to fail. So let's assume you're not going to fail and you're going to be successful. Go for it, okay? Enjoy. Any other questions we have here? Let's see. Since this is a film and literature festival, what do you think of the biggest challenge in film adaptation is? And what's your relationship with faithful adaptations? Okay. Blanca was an adaptation. It was an adaptation of several books, however. I have done adaptations. It's very hard to be faithful because books are a lot longer than 90 pages. And most films are about an hour and a half. Even if they're 2 hours, that's, an hour and 20. Okay? So that's 120 pages. Very few books are that short. So they're going to be trimmed down. The other thing is, with few exceptions, and I can even name those exceptions, but I'm not going to go into it too much detail. Most films are done in 3 acts. Okay? Books are not written in 3 acts. Books can jump back and forth from locations and time and everything else. They don't follow the same timeline. So it's very difficult. That is why you will get people who write a great novel and they don't write their own screenplays. Why? Because they're not screenwriters, okay? It's not easy to adapt a book. People think it is. It's a lot of work. And remember, you've got to make it into a 3-act and it's got to be limited with the time. Okay, when I went to Los Angeles last, I was at William Morris Endeavor, and I said, I'm doing this film. It's based on some newspaper articles. And the guy goes, you're doing adaptations? He gave me a list of 50 books that he represented to be adapted into films. most writers want their books to become film because they'll probably make as much money from that as they will from the sale of their books. It's very hard. I was very upset with the movie To Kill a Mockingbird because it was such a great book, and I felt they didn't use the right portions of it when they made the film. It's hard to have the relationship be faithful to the book. It's very difficult. And that's really on your writer. The producer can only hire the writer and see what they're doing. Maybe you don't like what they're writing, you bring in another writer. But unless you are a producer that writes themselves, you can only hope for the best, And it's a very good question. And, my relationship to faithful adaptations is I try my best. That's what I can say. Are there any other questions? You have something to say?
Yeah, I have something to say. Imagine this way, because I worked in 2 times on adaptations. One was actually for a docufiction. And what you said, the structure of the story that has to fit in a time and structure type of paradigm that you need to do, or the 3-act structure, as we call it, that makes it much harder. If I had to strip down the book, what remains is actually some situation, but mostly the character. The character with his flaws and strength. It comes down to that. If you find that essence, then you re-put the character in a, let's say, on a situation where the story is built again, almost from zero. They can have something that looks a little bit more faithful to what the book has. On film, we cannot put what the character feels or thinks, especially that part. So what he does can be seen, and that is a part you transport. And if there's little of that, you have to probably recreate that part to kind of get close to the character that you read in the book. That's what I have to say from my experience on. We worked on that docu-fiction, like I said, from a book written from a great writer that is really easy. He specialized on gangster genre, and I had to get that feeling, what he wrote in it, on the docu-fiction. Another time was a book written by a known writer, and most of the situations written in the book, they are nicely written with a nice, let's say, the writing had the style on his own, so it was easy to follow, but to show that on the screen looked like a cliche a little bit. So we had to recreate certain scenes again, readapt it, almost recreate it again. You almost rewrite the story, but with the same type of characters. That's what I can say for now.
Yeah. Okay, so other questions? Let's see, final question. Oh, I was having so much fun. Okay, for both of us. What makes you choose a film to produce? Oh, wow, I'm gonna give you some examples here, and then Andy's gonna give you some, because we're probably very different on this one. I wanted to produce a film called The Walk. This film didn't even have a script. It was an idea. I had an idea, and I hired a writer, and a well-known playwright, never wrote screenplays before. Her husband was a screenwriter. She wrote the screenplay. He rewrote the screenplay. I hired someone else who rewrote it. And then I never did it. And I didn't do it for a lot of reasons. Basically because I felt financially it wasn't viable for the return, because it was a period piece. And whenever you shoot period, whenever you shoot something from the 70s or the 80s, you have to change a lot, not just cars and clothes. There's so much that has to be done. So I usually choose a film. Okay, one more thing. The other thing is my company, New York Production Services. I don't actually choose films. People bring films to me to make. They usually already got finance. They have a lot of things, and they come to me to put it together and actually make it happen. But when I do self-produce, when it's my film, I choose a film that's doable. First of all, you gotta like it. You have to love the project. You're gonna spend a good portion of your life, of your waking hours making this film. So you gotta feel passionate about the project. If you're not passionate about the project in the beginning, you are never gonna be able to make it, because you will hardly feel passionate about it by the time you get to shoot. Okay, so you have your passion. Now, I make sure it's doable. I look at the film and I say, can this be done? Financially, can it be done? Technically, can it be done? You know, you can have a great idea, but it's just impossible. Someone brought to me a biopic about a boxer from the 50s. I said, we can't do this. We can never recreate the sets, the scenes, and everything else for less than $30 million, and no one's giving me $30 million to make a movie about a boxer that's not that famous. You know, they already did Cinderella Man with Russell Crowe, so I don't think they want to make it again. That said, that's the practical side of me. The passionate side of me is I have to have a passion for the project itself. Have a passion, but then be practical. Can you actually make it? Those are that's what determines when I choose a film. Can it be done? And do I feel passionate about it? All right, Andy, you want to add anything to that?
Well, it's always that. The films that you want to make, the films that you actually can make. This is kind of a distinction. The world that you live in is something in between. The cases that I've been on, most as producers, when the project is already there, I'm hoping at the right moment to finish it or bring in something, services or money. As an executive producer, that's what I had as the choice that I made to do those films is because I thought commercially that film could maybe do okay. So it was a reason that it's not really about passion for me at that project. Another one was really a passion because I wanted those kind of stories to come more on the market. But those kind of movies are rarely be made because really you have to have all the components as a producer, and money is really a key factor. As you said, you have to be rational, and most of the time that cannot really happen unless you are also the director. And that is another volet, let's say. There's another situation. Yeah, we didn't have enough money. I had to struggle. I, as a director, had to be creative. I did something and I finished the project. Happens that the project really went very well. And lately, as you know, they mentioned it on Forbes magazine as something always on the gangster genre. It was also the genre that I love. So it was really a passion project. So you got all these kind of works that always the word we live in is in between what can be done and what we want to do. That's what I've seen so far.
Yeah.
Yeah.